Flo's here as well today. You're studying in Iraq, aren't you, Flo? Large number of people taking part in this landmark vote on independence, of course, for the Kurdistan region. Big growing opposition both home and abroad as well.
That's right. Votes are still being counted, but we're expecting a massive victory for the yes vote in that referendum. Let's take a look at the Iraqi paper Asaba. On their front page, you can read that the world lines up with Iraq to reject the referendum. The world, as does the paper too, Asaba, stands behind the Iraqi government in rejecting this referendum. The paper has pretty harsh words. It talks about the uncompromising, stubborn Kurdish politicians who are sparking not only a national earthquake, but an Arab earthquake and an international earthquake.
And meanwhile, the Iraqi parliament has called on the government to deploy troops, in fact, in disputed areas, hasn't it?
Indeed. Let's take a look at another Iraqi paper. This is Azaman. It describes a very rare session in parliament yesterday where all lawmakers came together to show unity. The paper warns that a conflict could break out between the central government and the Kurdish region. Meanwhile, the paper talks about smooth-talking Kurdish politicians who hope this referendum will actually open the doors to the creation of a Kurdish state, something that they've been fighting for about 100 years now. This paper says that this referendum is in fact a first step to break down a barrier of fear, open the door to negotiations towards creating the state. But it's a risky move, according to Azaman, because there is a lot of regional opposition. And a lot of that regional opposition can be explained because neighboring countries are afraid that their own Kurdish minorities could get some ideas as well.
Going to go back here, in fact, to France now. President Emmanuel Macron, he's scheduled to give a big speech later today. Now, he's going to outline his ideas to kickstart the European Union, if you like. Flo, the results of the German election has dampened things down a little bit?
Now, officially, no. Officially, nothing has changed. Officially, Emmanuel Macron's plans and his ideas for the European Union are exactly the same as they were before the German election. But French papers aren't really buying that scenario and point out that actually the result of the German election has somewhat thwarted his plans. Why is that? Well, there was kind of a redistribution of cards in Germany, particularly the arrival of the far-right populists to the Bundestag and the difficulties that the Chancellor Angela Merkel is going to face in building a coalition. You can see here on the front page of Le Figaro pointing out that all this is bad news for Emmanuel Macron. But as I said, officially, everything's fine. He's just brushing up the wording of that speech, but it's just details, and he'll work on it until the very last minute. But that's normal, according to the Elysée.
Just believe it, really. It is quite a cold shower for Macron, isn't it? I mean, he made boosting the European Union one of his big foreign policy ideas, didn't he?
Indeed. The EU is really the heart of his foreign policy, and Germany is at the heart of his EU policy. So that's why this German election has really, I guess you could say, upset his plans. You can see a Libération here saying that, Emmanuel Macron was hoping that Germany would take France's hand to lead the European Union through some pretty tough reforms. But now that Angela Merkel is facing this redistribution of cards in German politics, well, Europe may not be her priority anymore. And so that means that priorities might have to change for Macron as well. This big European plan he has might have to take the back seat, go on the back burner.
Stateside now, it's emerged that several of President Donald Trump's closest advisors occasionally use private email addresses to discuss White House matters.
Certainly is a buzzing story in the U.S. press. Let's take a look at the New York Times. You can get all the details of those White House advisors. Among them, the man you can see in the photo there, Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, very close advisor. He apparently used private emails, about 100 of them, in fact, to discuss work-related matters during the beginning of the Trump administration, as did his wife, apparently. So Ivanka Trump, you can see her there. Apparently, Steve Bannon did as well. So lots of papers are pointing out that it's not illegal for White House officials to use their private email accounts. But remember, of course, when he was running for president, Donald Trump made a big stink about Hillary Clinton using her own private email. You can see here, this is the Washington Post. Tom Tolles, he has a very comical take on the situation. You can see Kushner here. Two options. He can either use a government email system, no problem, or his own private email. Lots of warnings there, but he says, I think I'll use this one.
Just time to talk about this. Pioneering therapy involving nerve stimulation seems to be working.
An incredible story. You can read about it in The Guardian. So this is a 35-year-old man in a vegetative state for 15 years, and he's shown signs of consciousness after receiving this therapy. It's a therapy being developed in Lyon, France. Now, essentially, it stimulates something called the vagus nerve, which connects the brain to almost all vital organs, and he essentially tracked objects with his eyes and responded to simple requests.
Okay, let's hope it takes off and continues to work. Thanks, Flo and Stephen on France 24.